Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we're going to peel back the curtain on something you and I encounter every single day, but probably rarely stop to think about. I'm talking about the invisible mechanics of pricing strategies. Have you ever actually wondered how businesses decide exactly what to charge you? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the fascinating and honestly sometimes shocking anatomy of a price tag. To kick things off, I want you to picture this highly relatable and, let's be real, incredibly frustrating scenario. You're sitting in a stadium, or maybe you're crammed on an airplane, and you start chatting with the person right next to you. Then you find out they paid $50 less than you did for the exact same experience. Why on earth did you pay $125 for a ticket when the person next to you paid $75? It feels completely unfair, right? But here's the secret. Pricing is not just some arbitrary math. It's a highly strategic game, and it's designed specifically to maximize value. So here is our roadmap for This Explainer. 1. The value behind the price. 2. The math of markup pricing. 3. The art of price discrimination. 4. Memberships, bundles, and peaks. And finally, number 5. Mind games and pricing strategy. Let's get into it. Okay, section 1. The value behind the price. Understanding the philosophical foundation. So before a business can actually slap a price on a product, they have to create value. And in economics, value creation equals the perceived benefit to the customer minus the cost of inputs. Or simply put, V equals B minus C. But what's really interesting here is how the actual price tag sits right smack in the middle of that equation. Think of it like a pie. The price divides that total created value into two very distinct pieces. Everything above the price, up to the absolute maximum benefit you perceive, that's your consumer surplus. It's that warm, fuzzy feeling of getting a bargain. Now everything below the price, down to the actual cost to make the thing, that's the producer's profit. So pricing is literally all about deciding exactly where to draw that line. To actually win in the market, a company has to pursue one of the two advantages you're seeing here. First, they can go for a cost advantage. This means they drive their production costs way down while keeping the product's benefit exactly the same. That gives them a whole lot more room for profit. Or second, they can pursue a benefit advantage. This is where they convince you that their product is drastically superior, which raises your perceived benefit even while their production costs stay pretty standard. Either way, they're essentially expanding the pie just so they can take a much larger slice for themselves. Moving right along to section 2, the math of markup pricing. Why markups vary wildly. Now, what's genuinely wild about this is the incredible contrast in how a standard U.S. grocery store actually prices its goods. Take ground beef, for example. It carries a tiny 0 to 10% markup on cost. It's an absolute staple, it's highly competitive, and shoppers know exactly what it should cost. But jump over to fresh fruit in season, suddenly that moves up to a 40 to 50% markup. And the real shocker? Spices. Things like nutmeg. They carry the absolute highest markups in the entire store. You've got to wonder, why? Well, the answer is the price elasticity of demand. This economic rule tells managers exactly how much they can mark up an item based entirely on our sensitivity to price changes. Basically, lower sensitivity equals a much larger optimal markup. Think about it. When you need nutmeg for a specific holiday recipe, you honestly don't care if it's $3 or $4, right? You just buy it. Your demand is inelastic. Managers know this, so they apply massive margins to those spices while keeping their margins razor thin on highly price-sensitive staples like milk or beef, where you'd instantly notice even a 50-cent hike. Do you want to see just how extreme this mathematical relationship can get? 357%. That was the optimal markup on cost calculated for a basic pair of Birkenstock sandals in a real-world catalog experiment. By simply offering a tiny $5 early bird discount on a $75 shoe, the retailer was able to measure the exact shift in weekly sales volume. The math revealed that customers were remarkably insensitive to the price. This meant the regular $75 price tag secretly represented a massive 357% markup on the $25 wholesale cost. It's a literal textbook example of matching a price to consumer sensitivity. All right, let's look at section 3, the art of price discrimination. How prices shift based on who you are. Imagine a university, let's call it Unilis, trying to price out their football tickets. They are facing two totally different markets. On one hand, you have the general public, who are willing to pay up to $225 for a ticket. On the other hand, you have the students, who simply can't afford that. Their maximum willingness to pay caps out at around $125.
If the university sets just one average price across the board, say $85, they leave a ton of money on the table from the wealthy public, while simultaneously pricing out a huge chunk of the student body.
The fix for this is what economists call price discrimination, and it actually comes in 3 degrees. First degree is basically the holy grail for businesses, extracting the absolute maximum amount each individual buyer is willing to pay. You usually only see this with haggling for big-ticket items, like a car. Second degree is bulk pricing. Buying more gets you a cheaper per-unit rate. But what Unilease is doing here is third-degree price discrimination. That's separating customers into distinct classes based on their unique demand curves. In this specific case, offering a student discount versus a general public rate. So the crucial point here is this number, $2.5 million. By simply segmenting the market and implementing a two-tier ticket system, charging the public $125 and the students $75, Unilease increased their optimal operating profit to a staggering $2.5 million. And here's the kicker. It costs them the exact same $25 in security and cleaning to host a student as it does a public attendee. The cost didn't change one bit. Only the pricing strategy did, preventing them from leaving all that money on the table.
That brings us to Section 4, Memberships, Bundles, and Peaks, extracting the consumer surplus.
Have you ever wondered how two-part pricing works? Think about your local golf course. First, they set the greens fee equal to their marginal cost, say $20 to cover golf cart maintenance and grass wear and tear. An avid golfer might play, let's say, 80 rounds a year at that really cheap rate. Second, the course calculates the total bargain or consumer surplus that golfer feels they're getting over those 80 rounds, and they charge that exact total, $3,200 as the upfront annual membership fee. They capture all the value while making the golfer feel like they are getting an absolute steal per game. It is brilliant. A close cousin to this strategy is bundle pricing. This is when a firm packages 2 or more goods together for a single lump sum. You know this one. Think of a 6-pack of beer or a new car loaded with a luxury package of tinted windows and leather seats. Firms do this when they can't perfectly gauge how much you individually value each separate item. By forcing a package deal, the bundle price is carefully calculated to equal the total area under your demand curve, squeezing out way more profit than if they just let you pick and choose a la carte. And then, of course, we have peak load pricing, which you have definitely experienced. Think of the Frog's Neck Bridge toll or booking holiday airline tickets. During peak times, demand is incredibly high and capacity is strained to its absolute limit. So to maximize profit and, frankly, manage the crowd, firms intentionally hike the prices. Conversely, during off-peak times when there's excess capacity, prices drop to incentivize usage. It effectively ensures the infrastructure is paid for by the people who demand it most desperately. Finally, Section 5, Mind Games and Pricing Strategy, the psychology of pricing. First up in this section is price skimming, when a company invents a totally new, highly anticipated product. Think the first flat-screen TVs or a brand new tech gadget. They are temporarily a monopoly. So they start by setting a very high initial price. The die-hard early adopters happily pay it. Then, right before competitors can copy the product, the company gradually lowers the price to skim the next tier of consumers. And then they lower it again. It's this carefully structured descent to capture every possible layer of willingness to pay. Then we have prestige pricing. Sometimes things cost more simply so they can cost more. Luxury cars, designer handbags, high-end watches. Companies charge a massive premium to capitalize on snob appeal. They are deliberately exploiting a deeply ingrained consumer belief that a higher price automatically equals superior quality, and more importantly, confers a greater sense of identity and status. Actually, scratch that, it's more than just a belief. If they lowered the price, the product would literally lose its appeal. And we absolutely can't forget the oldest trick in the book, psychological pricing. This is the classic retail illusion. Whether it's pricing a product at $9.99 instead of $10 or 9,500 kwacha instead of 10,000, it is a deliberate marketing ploy. It exploits our brain's natural tendency to anchor on the first digit we read, creating this sudden illusion of a significantly cheaper price, even though we all know the actual mathematical difference is completely negligible. Now, zooming out to a macro level, firms also play mind games with each other. This is known as price leadership. In industries dominated by just a few big players, outright price wars are a complete disaster for everyone. Instead, they silently follow the leader. Barometric leadership happens when one firm raises prices due to macroeconomic shifts, like rising oil costs, and everyone else quietly follows suit. Dominant leadership, on the other hand, is when a single, massive market player simply establishes the going rate, and all the smaller competitors just accept it as the industry standard if they want to survive. Last but not least, there's transfer pricing. This happens deep inside giant multinational conglomerates. Imagine a parent company where one division makes car engines and another totally separate division builds the cars. What price does the engine division charge the car division? Well, by manipulating this internal price, the transfer price, the parent company can foster incredible efficiency, shift profit centers around across borders, and maximize the absolute bottom line of the overarching corporate entity. And the crazy part? This happens completely out of view of the consumer.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. The next time you grab an item off a shelf, book a flight, or just look at a price tag, pause for a second and ask yourself, am I paying for the actual value and cost to produce this? Am I paying a premium for the prestige? Or am I just caught up in the timing of a carefully calculated markup? Pricing isn't just numbers on a page, folks. It is the ultimate strategy game. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll catch you next time.